Zehu gam kein shoresh inyan nedarim, and this is also the source for the concept of the oaths, the nedarim, shenesar davar hamutar al yedei hadibur, that you forbid something that's permissible through speech, keshematvis or bedavar hanador, when it's grasped with something that is oathable, that you can make a neder on. Of ish ki yidur neder, like it says a man when he makes an oath. Until he makes an oath with something that you can make a neder on, like a korban, for example. Now our sages said that nedarim are a fence for asceticism, that when a person forbids on themselves something that's permissible, so the thing becomes forbidden to have pleasure from, like a korban, that's forbidden to have benefit from. And from this it becomes a fence to separate oneself from all permissible pleasures, for like the pains that a person pains oneself with fasting. So too the nedarim are a fence for the asceticism, that is to push the other side, and to weaken its strength, through forbidding oneself, and also forbidding oneself from a permissible thing that's pushing and weakening the sitra achra. Because even though it's permissible, it's still coming from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is the shell that has a shine that's in the world of Asiya. Most of it, it's as if all of it is bad. So it's as if the entire Klippas Noga is just evil and bad. It's only that there's a little good that's inside of it, and that's the permissibility. Because it can be purified and elevated to holiness. But when a person eats for their own pleasure and benefit, and does not purify it, so it gets included in the bad, the Klippas Noga goes downwards. And the proof is from the mitzvah of a ben sorero mureh that he's obligated the death penalty of skila, the most stringent death penalty, because he was drinking too much wine and eating too much meat. And this is only for somebody who's actually drinking kosher wine and permissible meat, and not for forbidden food and not for forbidden meat. And the Kohen is also forbidden to drink permissible wine. And look what's brought in the Torah. In the first Mamar of Masei, and it says that to sanctify oneself in the things that are permissible to you. If so, this is just like the sanctity of the korban that you sanctify it with your mouth, and it becomes forbidden. That it becomes forbidden right away for the regular person. Therefore, you need to make an oath with something that is oathable. Korban, that this loaf of bread is like a korban. You also have to say it with your mouth specifically. Dibur davka, with speech specifically, v'ha'inyan hu mitamanal, and the concept is from the reason we said, she'ein ze b'yicholas rak al yidei hadibur dafka, this is only in the ability of speech, ki b'choch, m'she b'torah espiriru le'akaf, yelesitra achra, because from wisdom of the Torah, you can purify to push away, to push down the sitra achra, the other side. That we said that there's this connection between speech and wisdom, and from the wisdom, that has the ability to push the sitra achra. And so when you make a neder, it's coming from chokhmah into the dibur to push down the sitra achra. Achine b'nedarim ein kan ela la'akafi l'sitra achra. No, in nedarim there's only the pushing down of the sitra achra when you're in small docha, and it's the concept of the left side that pushes away. Lidchos hara bilvad, only to push away the bad, not to change it. Shelachin dochi gamis ha'maychel ha'muter, therefore you're pushing away also the permissible food, lefishum me'etz hadas tov v'ra, because it's from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Mitzad sheyesh bo ra, al kin docheu levilti yochlo chulu, therefore you push it away, not to eat it. And look what's brought about this similar idea, that the hair is in Shirashirim, that the hair is dark like ravens, black like ravens, Kumosha Orev, who arzari, just like the raven is cruel. So too you have this midah to push away the bad cruelly, and not to partake of it. So even though it must have a divine spark that's enlivening it, nonetheless you push it away completely. And on this it says, I am black but beautiful, because through this pushing this down, the sitra achra is elevated the beauty of the Holy One, blessed be He. And our sages said about this, do not be more righteous than your Creator. Parshas and more. Vidivrei sofrim yesh behem lidchos gam mashehu mutar al pi Torah, and the words of our sages have the ability to push away things that are permissible even according to the Torah, but the sages can forbid it. K'mo basar of b'chalav, for example, the meat of birds and milk, v'shumno shel gidon nasha, and the fat of the gidon nasha, uchagav, and the like, l'chein heim gavoim Torah shebichsav, therefore they're higher than the written Torah, because it's pleasing to me the words of the sages, of the scribes, that they're drawn from the concept of the scribe, that's higher than the level of the book. So you have these sofrim themselves, the scribes, higher than the Torah shebichsav, the sefer, b'lekuti Torah b'shirashirim, וידבר המסחיל שחורה הנבנה ודרוש השני נמצא אף שזהו על דרך small docha. So it's found then, even though this is similar to the idea of the left pushes away, because the mitzvahs that are the negative commandments come from the 5 strictnesses, so to the words of the scribes, nonetheless, through this idea of staying away from the bad, we draw down a higher idea and a higher hamshacha than through the positive commandments, and like the idea of the left hand underneath my head, so too through the concept of the nedarim as well, small docha, even though they're a concept of the left pushing away, to this you draw down a higher level, because the mitzvahs are called the 248 limbs of the king. which is the concept of Zah. V'haneder amru Razal. And our sages said that about somebody who makes a neder, kenoder b'chayei hamelech, like someone who takes an oath from the life of the king. So it's not just the limbs of the king, but it's the life of the king. B'chayei zir anpin heim mehabina. So if zir anpin is the limbs of the king, so the life of the king is from Bina, which is higher than Zah. That's because in Bina you have the revelation of Atik. And that's why you can also make a neder about a mitzvah. For example, not to drink wine, and it would also affect the mitzvah of drinking wine on Pesach or the like. Or because it's from Bina va mitzvah he bizun, and the mitzvah is in Ziran Bina Nukva, which is lower. Ki mitzvah hu shem havaya, because the mitzvah comes from the name of Hashem. Hainu mem tzadik ba'atbash hu yud kei. That is because mem tzadik in the switching the letters of atbash, aleph with beis and taf and shin, that comes to the letter yud kei im vav kei hu Shem Havaya, and together with the last letters of the word mitzvah, so the mem tzadik and the vav k becomes yud k vav k. But nonetheless, the concept of the mitzvah, that yud k, which is chochmah bina, comes through the switching of the letters. That comes to teach you that the main concept of the mitzvah is in zah nukva vav k al derech anistaros levai lokeinu. Like the idea that the hidden things are for Hashem Elokeinu v'nigalus lanu, and the revealed ideas are Vav K v'nigalus chulu. The Vav K are the revealed levels. Allah says is called Torah Azos to do. Ki inyan achalufi asvan, because the concept of the switching letters mavur b'sefer shul beinanim chilik beis of Perek Yud Beis is brought in Tanya at the end of Perek Yud Beis, Shiur Kamashal Ohr Hashemesh, that this is, for example, like the light of the sun, Kushamir al Yedei HaYereach Chulu, that shines with a reflected light of the moon, Shin Aruch Ohr Hashemesh Atzmo, that you cannot compare to the light of the sun itself, Luchein Shin Nun He Yemei Alavana Nekra Shana. That's why the 355 days of the lunar year are called a shana, lashon shinui, a language of changing, shemishtane ha'or, because the light has been changed. Shana means change, that it's a change from the light of the sun. Nechin shtei peos nikra mem tzadik pit tzadik bezohar. So too the two peos of Hashem kelarachum v'chanun, they're called in the Chilufei Asvan of Atbash Mem Tzadik Pei Tzadik in Bezoar Breshi Stav Kaf Lefishinim Shacha Or Al Yedei Cyrus, because the light is coming through the contraction of the hairs. Like it's brought in the Mamar about how all the nations saw the voices on Har Sinai. That they saw the concept of like Hashem compared to someone with a beard, because it's coming through Cyrus. And so too you can understand the concept of Yud K, which are Chachman Bina, when it's switched to Mem Tzadik, but nonetheless Vav K is shining as is through the mitzvah. And that's why the language is upon me, on top of me, higher than me. Hare alai korban. Hare alai korban means upon me is the korban, higher than me, because it's coming from the Chaya Melech, from Chochmah Bina, that's higher than Zah and Nukva, the mitzvah. Shperush alai ki inyan haviu alai kapara, like the idea of bring upon me an atonement, alai dafka, specifically upon me, al derech v'tispal al chana al havaya. Like it says that Chana davened upon Havaya, higher than Havaya. She drew down from higher than Havaya. V'nedava. So that's the neder. Now an adava gift harezu al derech am zu yatzarti li chulu. You say so it's like the idea of this nation I formed for me. V'chein yavu zeh vayikabel zos mizeh la'am zu. So too, like the idea of this. It's not a lie. It's harezeh korban, for example. You're pointing directly to it. It's not upon you, but you're pointing directly at it. And like it says, this shall come and receive this from that for this nation. So that's like Moshe Rabbeinu will come and receive the Torah from Hashem for the Jewish nation. Mezuzah is made out of the words zu and zeh, so it's the direct pointing at something. And since it says that to Hashem, to this we sin to him, so on the level of zu, we have the sin. Therefore you bring a gift to atone for that, to contradict that in a positive way, and say this is a korban olah lekash or lechaber zu im zeh keili chulu. You say zu olah, so you connect the idea of zu with this is my God. So you say zu olah to connect to zeh keili. But not that this should be elevated, that this gets to be elevated into the good, to be included in holiness, like the korban sheish ben beis dvarim. That the korban has two things. The first is that it's pushed away the nurturance of the external forces when you sanctify it with your mouth. When you say that this is a korban olah small docha, that is the left pushes away that it becomes forbidden for the regular person. You also have the concept of the right side, shemiskarvin, from the lashon korban, of closeness, that you get close, you draw close, through bringing it up to the mizbeach. First you forbid it to yourself, but then afterwards there's also the drawing close, to bringing it upon the mizbeach, to be a pleasing spirit for Hashem. So the concept of the sanctifying, or the nidava, the language of that you use with your mouth in order to sanctify with hare alai or harezu, it affects the idea of the small docha. But the yamin mikarevis is afterwards, with the bringing up to the mizbeach, to be liyosreach nichoach l'Hashem, to be a pleasing spirit for Hashem. And that's with the kohen, the man of kindness, from the right side, like it's brought in the Mamar, that you've made my hearts, and it's drawn from great kindness, that the shorsh of chesed is from the keser rav chesed, the great kindness, not just stam chesed. So too the mizbeach is in the portion of Binyamin, that is in the right side, the right hand, hamikareves, that draws close, so that's Benyamin, that's the right hand. And so too you have Aryeh Achil Korbanin, the lion that eats the sacrifices, Upni Aryeh El Hayamin, and the face of the lion, and the Merkava is on the right side. And this is compared to the eating of a regular person, that the food that a person eats, that he elevates it and fixes it, to be included in the holiness of the concept of man. And how much more so the eating of the mizbeach. Mibichinas yamin mekareves, in the concept of the right hand draws close to korban, the lashon kiruv. Zeu yisur and milas hakorbanos nidre gavoa. That's the greatness of the idea of the sacrifices, which are an oath to above. Shnei marsof Parshas Pinchas elatasu lashem b'moadeichem. That these are the sacrifices you should do in your holidays. Levad minidrechem v'chulo. Beside from the nedarim that you do. Hal nidrehed yod, that refers to the nedarim of the simple person. Shnei Parshas Matos, that the that the concept of these oaths that you give to above are a concept of the right hand that draws close. Which is not the case with a simple neder that's not to bring to the mizbeach, but simply la'asur isar al nafsho, to forbid something upon yourself. They're an idea of the left is simply only the left that pushes away. If it's brought to the mizbeach, you also have the idea of yamin mikareves achkam b'nedarim yesh kedug mazer b'korbanos. But even in the nedarim that are to just forbid yourself from something, you also have the idea like the korbanos. And that's the idea of permitting the vow, which is the idea that one single expert or three regular people, which is a based in matirim es neder, can permit the vow and let it go up through the opening of regret. Because all the concept of these oaths, which are called offense for removal of oneself from the physicality, that it says, a man when he makes a neder, but this that the wise a man permits the oath is the opposite, that he lets up and releases the thing that's forbidden, as if it was never forbidden. And the concept is who, and the Vanyan who kiyesh beis madregos. There's two levels, lakaf yila sitra achra, to push away the sitra achra. Dainu b'china small doche. The concept of the left side pushes leitzrachek v'la asur alatzmo, to forbid and push away from oneself something. Gam dvarim hamutarim, even permissible things, kadeshi he siag leprishus kanal, in order so that it should be a fence for staying away from things, like we said before. And the second concept is not iskafia, who hishafcha is changing, so the heter neder is going to be hishafcha, chashoch lenahora, changing darkness to light, umiriru miskachulu, and bitterness to sweetness, that is, you change this very body of the bad thing, and it becomes good, and the darkness changes to light. And the concept of pushing away is drawn from the level of bina, but the concept of changing something, switching it over, flipping it, is drawn from the level of chachma, higher than bina. And that's the concept of achosi basavi, the daughter of the father. So the father is chachma, and the daughter is the dibur basavi, specifically daughter of the father. That you're purifying it through that the achos, which is forbidden, becomes permissible through the concept of the daughter of being the daughter of the father. That the ishafcha changes something forbidden to something permissible. So too here, you have the neder, which had something that was permissible that became forbidden, now changes back from something forbidden to something permissible. Then you do not have to forbid upon yourself something that's permissible, but rather the opposite. You permit something that was already forbidden through a neder, that the neder was from bina. Because wisdom rules over understanding. Chachma rules over bina. That they're called the mother and the father. And our sages said that both the mother and the father are, both the son and the mother are obligated to give kavod to the father. So both, therefore, they have the kavod av, which is stronger in a sense than the kavod aim, because the mother is also obligated in kavod av, just like the son. And so that teaches us that wisdom, the chachma, is higher than the understanding of bina, and also so because even though this thing was forbidden, it changes and flips over because of the permitting of the sage, to become permissible. So this forbidden thing becomes permissible, and this is specifically through the sage, that it's in his ability to change darkness into light, because the wisdom is the strength of what? The concept of nullification, or Ein Sof, to the infinite light, and that's why the infinite light shines specifically on the level of Chachma. And in comparison to the infinite light, there's nothing that can hide. That in front of him, darkness is like light. Ein Mashikas, Blukutei Torah Parshas Tzav B'dibur HaMaschil Matzah Zu Chulu. Sham Nisbor Inyan HaChachma Mochin D'Abba Chulu. Look in the Mamar about the matzah, where it talks about how wisdom and is the concept of the brain of the father. Chachma has the hashas of Ein Sof Mishum Denahora Imei Shrei. Like it says that light dwells with him. So the wise person, Hainu Haroes, and all that he sees what's going to be born, Yishma'ain, the concept of creation, something from nothing, with a vision. Ukim Inyan, like the idea of the request, Masai Avovera, when will I come and see that you have a request to have a concept of vision on the level of Chachma, of Lios Kain, Yishbicholas Chacham, and that's why the sage on the level of Chachma, who's called Chacham, he has the ability to change darkness to light, because on the level of Chachma you have the Shras or Ein Sof, where darkness is like light, and that's why he has the ability to change something forbidden to something permissible, and something dark into something light. Look what's brought in Mizmor L'Soda. How all the sacrifices are brought as matzah without chametz, except for the korban toda, v'shtei alechem chulu, and the two breads on Shavuos, because their darkness is like light. And what's brought about the pasuk in Shirashim, that there are 60 queens, concerning the idea of the river that's Bina, and the concept of the spring, I guess. That which is more the level of Chachma, but for that from Nahar, the level of Bina, that's where you have the concept of Piru, that the river divides into Nifrad, and the concept of separation of Al Kasher Umayim Min Beis Hashem you'd say. But when you have the idea of the spring that comes out of the house of Hashem, Bechinas Chachma, the concept of wisdom, then you don't have that separation. Exactly the opposite. It waters even the river of Shitim, of the Shtus, of the Ummasa, Bechinas Klippas Noga, which is the concept of the Klippas Noga. That it purifies even that idea, to elevate the permissible to be usable and have a kiruv to Hashem. Even through the Taras Neder, not just through the Harezu of the Korban or Harei Ein Le'il, Sof Sifhei, and look in what we brought before, Sifhei, and Mashikas B'Likutei Torah, Parshas Teitzi B'Bir, Al Pasuk V'Lo Ava B'Sof, and look what's brought over there, and Mashikas B'Cheskel Siman Mem Aleph, Al pi hamizbeach eitz on the mizbeach of wood binyan shbizman shebeis hamikdash kaya mizbeach mechaper alav, concerning the idea that in the time of the Beis Hamikdash the altar atones for you, va'achshav shein Beis Hamikdash kayam, and now that the Beis Hamikdash is not there, shulchanu shel adam mechaper alav, a person's table atones for them. I know idea achnasa sorchim, through bringing in guests, al derech ki chesed chafatzti v'lo zevach, like the idea that I desire kindness and not the sacrifice, that the concept of kindness of achnasas orchim on your table replaces the idea of the zevach to Hashem, and through saying words of Torah upon the table, nimsa shulchan b'bechinazu adif mad neder. So it's found then that the concept of the table of eating food is better than staying away from the food, and as a neder, just like the sacrifices are higher than the oaths of the neder, through the idea that they're not just staying away but also drawing close. That's the korban has the maila, so too that the person's table is compared to the korban that has a maila over just the small dochet, has also the yamin mikareves of the chesed chafatzti v'lo zavach. Through these two things, because it has not just the small dochet but also the yamin mikareves, just like the mizbeach also has the korban, the kiruv of yamin mikareves.